Hello, I'm Gordon Lang, editor of CameraLabs.com. I'd like to give you a brief video tour around the Panasonic Lumix DMC TZ3. Here it is, the TZ3. It's the successor to the TZ1, which was one of our favourite compact cameras of last year. So what's new on this model? Well, there's an increase in resolution from 5 to now 7.2 megapixels, but the most important thing about the TZ1 remains on this new model, and that is that this compact camera doesn't feature a 3 or a 4 times optical zoom. It's got nothing less than a 10 times optical zoom range. But there's one very important difference between this and its predecessor. The TZ1 had an equivalent range of 35 to 350 mm. The TZ3 though has a wider range. It starts at 28 and ends at 280 mm. So you might be thinking, oh hang on, it's lost out a bit at the telephoto end. But believe me, 280mm is still a massively powerful focal length. But crucially, starting at 28mm gives you proper wide-angle capabilities that are missing from most of the compacts. So to show you what that looks like in practice, here's a couple of photos. Here's one of the TZ3 zoomed all the way out to an equivalent of 28mm, and it really is capturing a much wider field than you would do with a normal compact at say 35mm. Now here's the TZ3 zoomed all the way in to 280mm, and you can see that, okay, it might be 70mm shorter than its predecessor, but that's still pretty powerful. And the really important thing to remember is that you're getting this kind of focal range in a camera that can actually slip into your pocket. The TZ3 may not be the slimmest compact in the world, but this is certainly something that will fit, if not in a shirt pocket, certainly in a trouser or a coat pocket. And here it is with the lens extended at power up, and if I just zoom it in now, that's how big the barrel gets when it's fully zoomed into an equivalent of 280mm. This is a really seriously compact camera to have with this kind of range at your disposal. But it's not just a wider range that Panasonic's equipped the TZ3 with, it's also increased the size of the screen on the back from 2.5 inch to a whopping 3 inch, and that's a really generous sized display. So let's see what it can do in practice. We're outside with the Panasonic TZ3, so the first thing to do is see how quickly it takes to power up. Flick the switch on the top, the barrel extends, and you're ready to go. Now the next thing to see is the actual optical zoom range of this camera. Here we are, zoomed all the way out to an equivalent of 28mm, and this gives you a really decent wide angle coverage. But of course the impressive thing about the TZ3 is how much it can zoom in. It has a 10 times optical zoom that gives it an equivalent telephoto coverage of 280mm. So to demonstrate that, let's zoom in on this little white dot that you can see on the lake. There we are, zoomed into 10 times, and you can see that it's in fact a boat sailing across the lake. But you can also notice that at this sort of zoom level I'm shaking quite a lot. However, the TZ3, like other Panasonic cameras, features optical image stabilization. There's two modes. I'm going to switch it to mode 1, which stabilizes all the time. So if I switch that on, you'll see now that the image just appears to kind of float. It's stabilizing that very effectively. So let's zoom back out again and I'll show you some of the other features of this camera. Now the TZ3 is pretty much an automatic camera only, but it does at least give you very quick access to some of the features that you can change. Now this is something that's been inherited from other Panasonic compacts, and it wasn't present on the TZ1. If you press the function button here in the bottom right corner, the TZ3 overlays these graphics on the top of the screen. And they let you change things like the white balance, the ISO setting, the aspect ratio, the resolution, the compression settings, and the drive mode. It's really nice to have direct access to these features, although of course you can still go through the main menu system and adjust them there if you like. One of the other things I want to show you about this are the various graphics you can overlay while you're shooting. At the moment we've got a completely clean display, but if I press the display button here once, you'll see that we get all the shooting information overlaid on the screen. Press it once more, you get a live histogram here that shows the range of tones in the image. Press it again, and you get a kind of SLR viewfinder type view, which shows various details along the side and the bottom. Press it again, and you get a 3x3 grid. This is great for aligning your horizons or applying the rule of thirds. Press it once more, and again the display goes off. Now just before wrapping up, I'd like to show something quite neat in playback mode. So if I switch the TZ3 to play, Here's a picture that we took earlier, and if we go to the menu system and activate dual display, it will actually show this picture and the next one along. The idea is that you turn the camera on its side like this. The screen is so big you can get away with it, and you can compare a picture here with one below and go, oh yeah, I think I'll keep this one, but maybe I won't go for that one. And of course you can also change the images and have a look at some of the other pictures you've been taking. It's really neat to be able to do this. The Lumix TZ3 is arguably one of the most flexible compact cameras on the market today. Its predecessor, the TZ1, already offered enormous flexibility with its 10 times optical zoom range in a relatively pocketable package, but now Panasonic's just made it that much better by offering a proper 28mm wide-angle coverage. It's just really nice to use this camera in practice. You can be shooting a big landscape or a big group shot at one moment, and then if you see something in the distance that you think, oh, I'd like to have a closer look at that, you can zoom right in with that. And we've got examples of that in our gallery at cameralabs.com. One thing we didn't mention earlier is that the build quality of this camera is also very, very good. Its metallic body feels very confident when you hold it, and it's just finished to a really high standard. So there's a lot of great things about the TZ3. What about the downsides? Well, like its predecessor, there's not a great deal of manual control available on this, in fact, virtually none at all. You can't change things like the aperture or the shutter speed, so if you're the kind of photographer who wants a compact you can tweak, this probably isn't the model for you. However, with 21 scene presets and exposure compensation, you can almost trick the TZ3 into taking the kind of creative photos that you're after. It is possible to get some really nice results with this. Speaking of results, the quality is also pretty good. There's inevitably going to be some compromises when you squeeze such a big lens into such a small package, but surprisingly, there's much fewer compromises than you may imagine. So all in all, the TZ3 is a really, really good compact camera. There are some noise issues if you go above 200 ISO, but that's par for the course with most compacts today, so we're willing to forgive it for that. So if you're after a compact with a difference, with a zoom lens that's more like a huge SLR camera or a super zoom model, then this is definitely one to consider. As always, like our other videos, this represents just a small part of a full review that is available at www.cameralabs.com. So if you want to find out about all of the features of this camera and see the results of it compared to some of its rivals, then head over to the website and see what you think.